I don't know. I'll just start off and tell you that when there was a farmland behind us, it was just heavenly. It was absolutely private. We didn't have any curtains up, so it was absolutely private. It was lovely. And then we all started planting, you know, the houses came. That took away my sunset, my sunrise. My sunset was really gorgeous before. And then as the bamboo that the Rosenblums planted when they first moved here kept moving closer and closer, and my trees got bigger and bigger, I now have a much darker house.
And then she went.
The house is darker.
Yeah.
I remember
Yes, the house is
when you
darker.
mentioned the farmland
Right.
back there, they used to hunt back there.
Yeah.
And I remember very vividly Ruth saying, Don, you know, ask them to move. And I remember walking slowly. This guy had a shotgun, and he was walking, the children were playing towards near the Watkins land. And I said, well, here's where I'm going to get shot. And I started walking towards him. I never said a word. He suddenly started to veer off. Backed away. I said, "Phew, thank goodness. But the kids were playing. They're hunting. And I figured a rabbit runs across, someone's going to shoot no matter where it is. And but there was nothing but open fields back there. And Ruth was very upset when she finally found out what the swinging bridge looked like, where the children would all go.
Well, that was their secret. Yes, but some
Very
of us knew.
Yeah.
What about the frog pond?
What pond?
The frog pond, which used to freeze over, and the kids would go down and ice skate on the frog pond.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So the question was, and I'll try to remember what Ruth was saying about values, and when you're looking at neighborhoods, if I'm getting you right, the values of the people in the neighborhood versus the value of your houses? Is that what
Well, I was saying, when we looked for a house, none of that, you
No.
know. I mean, we were looking for
For
a
a
good
house.
school, for a house we could afford, a really nice house where everybody could have their own bedroom. That was it. I think now people might be thinking more in terms of the kind of neighborhood it is. And, you know,
I think one of the reasons also is a hidden reason why people are often against affordable housing. I think there is still abroad in the land prejudice, and much of it has no logical explanation. We live in separated communities to a great extent still. And I think people who don't know about other people simply hold on to the prejudices they have out of ignorance. Because I've said as a joke, but it's really not a joke, when people say, are we ready for a black president, and leave the question there and never pursue it, I've been saying, why don't we ask the people who are demurring, why don't we ask them why? So then we can hear the reasons why people don't want to live with various other people. But I think that there's part of that to the affordable housing.
yeah, but I think that you're exactly right. I think she had said that it's really prejudice. I mean, it's Hispanics, there are going to be blacks, and that's it.
It's fear of the other.
But in large extent, you guys overcame that. And I'm not, by saying that, I'm not suggesting you came in with prejudice. I'm not suggesting it at all. But to the outside world, you overcame that. So in quote, overcoming that, what do you tell everyone else that some people don't know?
I can't put my hand up because you can't see it. I don't know if I can really answer that, because this is a different time. We're talking 50 years later, and the world's gone amok. The crazy world we're living in.
But some things haven't changed. I mean, you still have prejudices. I mean, if you have to ask the question, are you ready for a black man to be president of the United States? If you look at housing patterns, you still see most people have a tendency to live in neighborhoods that look like them, have the same background as them, has the same economic level as them. Your neighborhood, though there are other neighborhoods like yours, you are in the minority, to use the word, than the overall society. So your neighborhood, for whatever reason, figured it out, and what do you say to other people to help them figure it out, or to say, you know, it's not really, there's nothing wrong with living next to someone who's Jewish if you're Christian. There's nothing wrong with living next to someone white if you're black or Hispanic.
Now add a Muslim to that, and where are we these days?
Right.
Specifically to the white people, because the Rosenblums for sure said without question, they bought the house because for them it was the best house for the value. I don't think it would have made any difference to them who lived next door. At least that's the impression that he gave me.
Yeah.
For Sandie and Irv, she wanted a new house, something that wouldn't have to be remodeled, and they could afford it. I mean, and Bob, you know, has sort of said, well, you know, it was a little different situation for him. He had lived in Washington, Maryland. Yeah, right. And, you know, but he was willing to take the plunge, so he's the one you have to talk to, what he would say about affordable housing.
Well, I'm not sure how pertinent this is, but it has reminded me in the early years here, Helen and I were part of a sort of a speakers bureau for, I don't know, some group that was promoting human rights, civil rights. And so I went to a number of places. I went to Plainfield once, and to Trenton once, into communities that are sort of on the fringes, more on the fringes of an urban community than we are here, where they were undergoing, if not formal blockbusting, at least the changing color line, if you will, in their communities. And I remember talking to a group in a little Methodist church in West Trenton. I'm not sure it was West Trenton, but Trenton, about our experiences here and what it had been like and why we'd come here and what it was like and so on and so on. And one little old lady, probably not as old as I am now, was really very intent, I could tell as I was talking about her. And her first question was, do you have children? Or maybe I'd already said this, but yeah. 2 boys and 2 girls. She said, aren't you afraid that your children, I think she said specifically your daughters will marry a black? And my answer to her, totally spontaneously, was there are black kids living next door and across the street that I would an awful lot rather have my daughters marry than an awful lot of white kids I know about. And I don't know what bearing that has on this, but somehow that was my way of saying to them or one way of saying that racial discrimination, that racial dividing line, is not the important dividing line.
I think the other thing we have to work on is a broader picture also. Even though we would want to keep housing of this type, maybe it's too much to take on, but until schools are more integrated than they really are, and places of worship, all the other aspects of our behavior in our lives. Look what's happening to Mount Laurel and to all of those plans that were to help toward this kind of community. They're being divested of funds and they're disappearing. So I guess in the political sense we have to work in those areas too, so that housing becomes a part of the change, a part of the change.
And I would suggest we need to keep reinventing new ways of doing that. Mount Laurel had an impact for a while, and it's now fallen on unpopular times. But there have got to be other mechanisms that we can invent, discover, create to accomplish the same basic goals.
So what I'm mulling over now is going back to Ruth's comment that those of us who just felt this was a house that we really wanted. And I think if you're just basically decent people and respect people and want to be friendly with your neighbors, it will work no matter where you are.
No, I agree. There's a saying that I've heard so often, talking to some, said, hey, it's one of my best friends. We've been working together for the last 20 years. I said, have you ever had him over for dinner? Ed leaves and he leaves and they go their separate ways. And hey, you find, you know a person, you work with him or her, or, you know, and it's, but then we just do not mingle after work. So we really don't get to know each other.
But then how do you bridge, or what can you tell people? Because obviously you guys have done it, you've lived it. But how do you tell people how to bridge that gap? You know, yeah, you can say, oh, you gotta get to know one another, you live next to each other. But what about the person who doesn't even want to take the first step to live next to somebody? What do you tell them of your experiences and who you are to say it's okay to live next to somebody who's not like you?
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting because there was a study some years ago about going door to door, asking housewives questions, and they could ask about sex, their sex lives, but as soon as you asked them the income of the family, the door would slam in your face. Now, I think when you talk about affordable housing, I think that's what may be in a lot of people's minds. I mean, I paid this much for my house, and I'm going to live next door to somebody else who didn't pay that much money, and apparently they are not the same people that I am. I mean, we're just not the same people. And I think here, when we came to this neighborhood, the houses, everybody knew what everybody else's house, if you had a large ranch, if you had a small ranch, if you had a split level, everybody knew the price of, so that was not even a beginning of an issue here as to who could afford to live where. You know what I mean? It had all to do with being an integrated neighborhood, which, to be honest, it was 9 and 6, 9 white families and 6 blacks. So I think that's, and I can't even, that's where I am. I can't get connected with affordable housing.
But I think there are plenty of neighborhoods that are all white in which neighbors don't even know each other, because there are people who really don't care. They have their, maybe some of them are just involved with their own family, or maybe they had friends beforehand. They just didn't open themselves to that.
But aren't in those neighborhoods the houses are pretty much of the same or
I don't
not?
know. I don't know.
Are you talking about different?
Well, it's like New York.
You might do.
When I lived there, I didn't know the person across the
No, I
hall.
don't know.
You know, it wasn't a neighborhood sort of situation. There's certain areas, when you mentioned that, I thought I'd start saying smoking just like a New Yorker, because that's basically what I found in the city. I knew some people, but they didn't live next door to me.
Oh, but you see, I knew the owners of the stores of some of the stores.
Okay, well, that's
My next door neighbor was a Chinese family who owned the local Chinese
But
restaurant.
you did
They kept to
know.
themselves. We always said hello and how are you, but that
was
was
it.
as far as they wanted to
Okay.
go.
So that's
But-
interesting. What is it? What do you say? I'm
I
interested
think
in knowing.
it's a pertinent question, because we've all
It
said
is.
we want this community or something like it to continue, and we're not really getting to the
No,
crux
yeah.
of that matter that she raised, you know, fully.
Yeah.
So,
I think people
we have
have their
homework.
prejudices, and they are probably, it's not going to be easy to get over them, and whether it be the value of the house, the people who would be moving in their minds are going to be people who are going to be earning less money than they are, and they are going to be Hispanic, they're going to be black, they're going to be people that they don't necessarily want to associate with. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, but I also think part of the reason that we all got to be so friendly is those of us who had young children and weren't working and didn't have a second car, and the children played with each other, and we were all home, and we wanted this. These were our friends, our neighbors. Doesn't mean we didn't have friends outside of the neighborhood. I think the more mixed in your life, the better it
I
is.
know. It's hard. It's a tough question.
Yeah.
But I think the bottom line is, you know, like when they say, I don't know Obama, I need to know more about him, he's black. That's the bottom line. You know it, and I know it, and you know it. I mean, that's it. I mean,
Well,
what else do you want to know?
Well, there's racism.
It's all
There'll
the
always be
racism
there,
is
yeah.
there. I think that's it. I don't know.
maybe we this is terrible, but I'm thinking in order to ensure that the principles we admire and the place, this place continues and others like it come into being, not just this little place, one has to begin to make a conscious effort to court people to some degree, like you
to
went
come.
and spoke to those groups, you know, to really become ambassadors or to reach out in some way to educate people in the way that this documentary may do, because we've had newspaper articles, but we haven't had anything like this, to keep the fires going, so to speak. Now, that would be a small effort if it were just we who did that. But my point is, if we have something that we think is precious, then we have to figure out how to sustain it and have it continue into the future.
Well,
In the face of these horrors you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I just want to say one thing before my husband steps in.
Yes.
You know, it's very interesting, but of all of our children here, which ones of them live in an integrated area?
I don't know.
None of them, huh?
I don't know.
I guess none, no.
I know integrated meaning Chinese, meaning people from different countries, but I don't know whether in
Well,
North
there's
Potomac,
Carol,
whether there
there's
are black.
Rob, there's Rob, there's David, your children, you have 3 children. Karen is just back from China, and we know she lived with expats over there.
Elizabeth.
And I don't know about Carol's
hi.
But does she
family.
live in an integrated area? Are there other
I
black?
don't know. I don't know about Carol's because I don't know that many of her people, but I know in David's area, that's what I was saying, they're ethnically integrated, but whether it also includes black, I don't know.
The tough nut
I
to
mean,
crack is
I
racially
really don't know.
integrated. Yeah, the tough nut is racially.
Yeah.
People will become diverse in other ways, but when it comes to black and others, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Well,
And it very often, as I've said, there's no
Yeah.
logic to it, but it's different.
Yeah, Ted has 4 boys.
Yeah, my
we're-
son Trey lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's a fairly enlightened community, and he does have a couple of black people in his block, and they have block parties. So it's not a really separate neighborhood like ours, but it's a street where they are integrated.
The door locked? The front door
That's
locked?
interesting.
I don't know that.
Well,
No,
they-
well, how about Maple Crest? That's the other Princeton. They are not nearly as integrated as it has turned predominantly Caucasian, you know.
I still contend that ours was partly a success because we were isolated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That,
Brian Mitnall has been telling us that he has integrated many communities since he has left here, because he will move in, and the next thing he knows, I guess there are other, he has friends, but I mean, he himself has been the one that has integrated a number of neighborhoods over the years, because, right?
Do you know Brian Mitnall, whom she refers?
I haven't met him yet, but I've heard stories.
Okay.
I've seen pictures.
But they are responsible for them going in a direction.
I think
They
that's,
had an organ.
well, not only that, Brian is very friendly with David, isn't he, and
Oh,
his
yeah.
family?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
With our family, yeah.
So I think Brian actually is the one person who has done a great job on integration, because his son married a white woman.
The policeman.
He what?
Now that bothered me. I heard a police woman. But she might give it up. Didn't he say that?
Not necessarily.
And I
She
thought,
carries a gun and a club and keeps him in line.
so I
I do think, though, that that's a critical question that perhaps we need to put on the table for the next 50 years, or next year's.
The proximity,
No, how,
What do the kids do?
no, not the children.
We need to do it with our
Which was
children.
interesting, yes, but, yes, that's what you were implying. But how it is, we face now the affordable housing question, which is different but similar to the situation into which we came, and have it work. We're all very comfortable in saying, oh, this has been lovely for 50 years. But we are the stewards, really, of this concept. And that's a big job.
Well, our
For
children
us.
live in,
Huh?
Chris lives in a neighborhood that's integrated up to a point, not really. It's predominantly white.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, and Kirk also in Ewing, same thing. But
well, I think it's much easier for a black today to live in an integrated environment, in the sense that they are black, and most of the communities that, if they're upwardly mobile at all, are largely white communities. So they, like Brian, they integrate the community. For whites, you got to find the right place where there's some racial mix. Dave and Valerie had a black family lived across the street from them for a while.
But Diane's talking affordable.
I know, you're right.
Well, I only said affordable because it seems to be the issue,
Of the
the hot
day.
topic on housing today, or back in your day, when you guys
It
was
was
in
different.
it was
Race
integrated. I mean, but yes, I mean, you can talk about either one of them from the viewpoint of lessons that you have learned, or just knew because you chose to live in this neighborhood, that you can share with other people who are reluctant to live in an integrated neighborhood, or whether it's on class or race. And that's really what we're talking about, integration, whether it's class or race.
I think when you set up an area at the party to document what our children have to say, I think you'll get some answers from them. What has it meant to them to grow up in a neighborhood like this, and how has it affected their life?
But it hasn't translated over, that's what we're talking about now.
They are not in,
That's for them then.
But is that,
But maybe in interacting with people, I don't know about housing. I mean, Rachel lives in the city, so where she lives is thoroughly integrated with many different people at Stuyvesant Town.
well, and then the question is, and I do hope I can talk to your children, they'll talk to me on tape. But the question is it them or is it the culture? Because they may be willing and see it very natural to live in an integrated neighborhood, whether it's by race or class, because of their experiences, but the culture may have not caught up with them yet. So, you can say they don't live in integrated neighborhoods, but if your children are all professionals and doing very well,
And can afford a certain house, I'm not talking about my children,
Right.
but I'm talking about all of our children.
Yeah.
If they can afford to live in a house that's on a hill, that has grounds around, why shouldn't they live there, regardless of who else lives next door to them?
I mean, there are middle and upper middle class African-American neighborhoods, we all know that. But in wide swaths of the country, they're not. So if you are of color in that income bracket, you're not necessarily going to be able to move into an all-black neighborhood, or a white family may not be, who may want to live in an upperly mobile, affluent African-American community, may not be able to because they can't find one where they live. So I guess, I'm struggling with trying to frame the question in a way to really kind of elicit some kind of lesson, because, I think my struggle is that this is so natural to you guys, that even though there are those other issues, it has been so natural that you've lived this way for 50 years that you don't think, why should it be a problem? And so I'm trying to see if I can pull out reasons.
No, it's a problem.
well, there is a problem.
It is a problem.
It's
Well,
just
you know
that,
a problem, but I'm asking you for solutions, and you're not giving me solutions because you're not thinking about it, because you've lived this way for 50 years.
And ask people individually if they would live their house, if they would like their house to be next door to some other house that was maybe $200,000 different. I mean, that would, I don't know whether you get an answer out of that or not. If that $200,000 is an affordable house, and they're living in a house that is not, that costs twice as much, ask them.
I'll ask you first.
It wouldn't make any difference to me, you know why? Because at this stage, I'm not looking for a school. I've got my friends, I'm set, I'm set in my ways, and, as long as I don't feel that somebody's going to be, and this isn't any particular group, I can't imagine anybody living next door to me that I couldn't get along with.
well, how about,
So let me ask this question. I was just reading in the paper, and they were giving statistics, and you may have seen the article. The article said that Asians are moving into New Jersey
Yeah,
in
high
very large
rate, yes.
numbers. And so when you look at the county breakdowns, and what you saw was when the counties where there was an increase of Asians moving in, there was also an increase of white families moving out. I have heard that West Windsor Plainsboro School District, as you all know, is one of the best in the state, that now that the Asian population is moving up, there is now becoming white flight. And part of the reasons there's white flight is because the Asian students are always at the very top of
Right.
this academic ladder, that some white families feel they have to move so that their kids can be competitive.
I was totally unaware of this.
Well, I just had
It
a
was-
child who graduated, but
Yeah.
that is one of the issues. So, given that context, what would you say to people?
I have no problem with age.
No, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
Does it make a difference if my child is having a problem in school because the teacher is treating them differently, which I've been through that too, but I don't know what I would say. I know it's a problem though, because we have a friend who lives in Skillman, and that's also a blue ribbon school, and there are very few white kids in the class because of just what you're saying.
In
And she-
Skillman?
Well, not in Skillman, but
That's been
in
at-
Montgomery. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Montgomery.
High School?
Yeah, in elementary school.
See, it's hard, it's a matter of principle, I think. People who claim they have certain principles, I'm leaving out the people who are prejudiced. But say you have a group of folks who have a certain principle about live and let live and encouraging diversity and so forth. When push comes to shove, most people do not abide by those principles. It's hard. You watch in the political arena, you watch in almost every arena imaginable. When it becomes personal, they lose the principle they claim they had. And so it's going to be hard to ferret out the people, because sometimes they don't know themselves. Maybe some of these families didn't think they would move for that reason, but when it happened, they decided that they would. So it's a precarious situation, and it's going to be difficult because the principled life is waning in the society, to say the least.
So I just want to interject here that I was on Nassau Street having dinner at Blue Point Grill the other night, and around 7 o'clock in the evening, I was with a friend, we took a long walk along Nassau Street. It was a beautiful night. Remember Saturday night? The weather was just perfect. And the population was very different. It's very multicultural. It's not the same. I don't know if these are people who just came into Princeton, but I don't think so. They were young families,
Like visitors,
wheeling
yeah.
children in strollers, and it's very different. It's not an all-white community.
You're talking about Princeton walking...
On Nassau Street, yeah.
And when you say multicultural, there are blacks and
Blacks, a lot of more Hispanics.
Hispanics.
A lot of
okay.
Hispanics, yeah. So it's changing all over. I don't know where they all live.
Not in-
They
not in-
may
not in- not in
they may all
Princeton.
live in Princeton, but
They're
do they
visiting.
all live in the same neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because Princeton still has, Princeton
yes.
has
Surely.
neighborhoods, and it has areas where, the old Princetonians and the professors and the whites and the blacks, so, there's still separation even in
I think we all have a complex set of frequently unarticulated values. And in many cases, these values are in conflict with each other. I want, for example, we're talking about housing. I want to be able to have my family live in a nice house on a nice lot where the kids can play in the yard and like a pond so the kids can fish. I'd also like my kids to be in a great school system. I'd also like to live in a culturally diverse community because I have an interest in that. I'd also like to
Right.
And so when it comes to making a decision about where I'm going to live, somehow these things sort their way out, and you attach, subconsciously probably, you attach priorities to them or weights to them. This was a little more important than that one. I probably not consciously, but you know, those things determine where you live. And I guess this community is not a very diverse community when it comes to house size or lot size. It is, I think, a fairly diverse community with respect to some degree, with respect to income level. I mean, there are people here with very low incomes. There are some people who are living here, as I think somebody mentioned Todd Rossi. He's doing very well. He's got a president of a company that's doing extremely well. Folks next door, a couple of chemists who I think probably doing very well. Now they have chosen, for whatever reasons, they have chosen that income level is not going to be the determining factor in where they live. So there is that kind of diversity here, as well as racial and ethnic and national. But I think, you know, I don't think it's important to have every community, and what size community are you talking about? We're talking about 20 houses here. Let's talk about 100 houses. Is it important that every community be diverse in every respect? Would it be okay if West Windsor, like it does, has McMansions out there and Berrien Village in Berrien Village, and us here,
Apartment houses.
and apartment houses in various places? You know, is it important that every subset within West Windsor have maximum diversity? You know, I guess I'm not quite sure what we really mean when we talk about affordable housing.
I thought I heard something.
Somebody must have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come in.
No, I'm essentially.
Somebody must have thought it important because communities, it's been set aside that communities have to have a certain portion of affordable housing. Isn't that the way it is?
Within a township, within West Windsor.
Right.
But they don't have to be, quote, integrated with the rest of the townships. They could be a separate neighborhood.
Yeah, well, I think Princeton has tried to send all of their to Trenton or someplace else.
Briggs Farm?
Yeah.
What about Briggs Farm?
Where, well, I don't know whether they filled their quota or not. I hate to use the word
Briggs Farm?
quota, but what I'm trying to say is affordable housing is an issue. And somebody thought it to be because they set aside, each community or has to set aside a certain amount of it.
So let me ask a slightly different question. I'm
Good.
still trying.
Thank you.
Let's take out affordable housing. Let's take out what size house you want. And we can make the assumption, I think it's a fairly good assumption, that most people want safe neighborhoods.
Right.
They want good schools if they have school-aged children. They want value for their property, and they want to be living in a community that's safe and friendly, et cetera, okay? Now, if everybody wants that, whether you're Jewish, Muslim, black, white, Asian, Indian, Hispanic, why then do we not have mixes in neighborhoods? Why don't we have diverse neighborhoods? We're taking out, you know, the ability to pay for a house. Let's just assume that everybody can pay for the same house and everyone has the same value. Why is it that we don't have communities like yours?
One reason would be contributing to some other reasons, the stereotypical attitudes that still exist among people. Because we know that even when people of certain races or certain backgrounds are in the category you just mentioned, there's still that reluctance to include them or to reach out to them in particular ways.
So then what would you say to people who have that reluctance, how to overcome that reluctance? Because obviously you've overcome it for 50 years.
You know what? This neighborhood was a planned, integrated neighborhood. Maybe what affordable housing has to do is to plan an area where they will have, affordable housing and incorporate it in.
That's what they try to
That's
do
what
when
they
they
do.
set aside certain
Yeah.
percentages within the area.
Yeah, but they're going to have to do better than that. They're going to have to map out an area that includes other kinds of housing, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, some of them do. It's just
Well, a lot of them do, because, I mean,
But
some of the
people still
apartments
complain.
are right next to big houses right out here in West Windsor. And I mean,
But they're
aren't
next
those, aren't those apartments, I'm not sure whether they're affordable or not, but
There are certain-
aren't there some affordable housing out there off on Bear Brook Road?
In some of those developments, there are a proportion of the units.
Yeah.
that
Oh,
are
then,
So what
some
happens
small
there?
proportion.
So what happens
I think it
there?
works fine. I mean,
So
I'm-
how does it, do you know how those apartments and things are working out, where they have a portion of them are supposed to be affordable?
Well, what happens in West Windsor? West Windsor, my understanding, has taken the position that the affordable housing has to be integrated.
Has been
It
what?
has to be integrated, so you can't just
Within-
put all your affordable housing in one little isolated area. So you have places where they will have affordable housing, and you live in a neighborhood, and you don't really necessarily know
That's
that
right.
the person living in the
Right.
townhouse
Right.
next to you is affordable housing.
Yeah, okay.
Most of the affordable housing in the township, though, is rental. It's not for sale housing.
Okay.
So that you're still gonna be
That
able to
makes
have
sense.
the mansions over here by
That's right.
themselves, but the affordable housing units
Yes.
will generally be your apartment complex.
And that's key,
I'm not-
because then, of course, there's, departures and comings and goings, I guess I'm trying to say.
Okay, so let me just ask this one last question. Do you think that the future of integrated housing,
racially integrated.
racially integrated housing, is that we need to go back to planned integrated housing?
I don't think in this.
Needs
day
to be
and age
planned?
that should be
Is that what
That's
you're
what this neighborhood was. This was a planned neighborhood.
One
I don't-
reason being, I think because housing is more open, I
No.
think if a black can afford a house that costs $500,000, they don't have to live, unless they really just want to do that, they don't have to live in a specific area anymore. And I think maybe that's the problem.
I think you're right, but I also think there are areas where they can't. That is, discrimination still exists. It is possible by some hidden covenant or something, for a community to essentially find a way to exclude blacks. But there are far fewer of those than there were 50 years ago. Now, as you say, if a black wants to buy a house in West Windsor, we know some who did, in fact.
Then I want Diane for my lawyer.
Yeah. How about Princeton, the western section?
What?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I don't know whether
I still think we're a product of the times, of the late 50s and the 60s and being isolated. But I was just thinking about this little area near the Passage Mill Theater.
Mill
Yeah,
Hill?
that's an integrated neighborhood, isn't it? So one, isn't it?
Theater.
In Trenton?
Mill Hill.
Yeah.
Mill Hill,
No.
yeah.
Hill is,
No,
Yeah,
she's-
they were gentrified.
No.
Where are you talking about?
Mill
Susan?
Hill.
Trenton.
Mill Hill.
Mill Hill.
Mill Hill.
Mill Hill, yeah, yeah,
So that is integrated, isn't it?
yeah.
But it's gentrified, so only people with a certain degree, a certain level of income can live
Can
there.
live in
I
that.
think
Although-
until we recognize that not all of us are professionals and not all of us are doing well financially, we keep forgetting the people who need housing of the type we're discussing, who, for one reason or another, either because of income and because that income makes people be unwelcoming to them. Until that situation is changed, we may very well need some more planning, specific planning. Because there are hordes of people who don't live as well as we do, even though we're not wealthy. And those people want all the things you described. All the things you described.
And who doesn't?
I think we have to find ways to make sure that that segment of society.
There was a quote in the very beginning of when the germ of the idea that ended up being this neighborhood was created. When Howard Woodson, a black principal of the Quarry Street School, said at this meeting of people that we're not going to resolve the school integration issue until we resolve the housing one. It also goes the other way. Until we can somehow provide education, adequate education for kids in urban areas, poor kids, wherever they may be, provide them with the education that enables them to make a decent living, that enables them to buy a house, we're not going to solve the problem. I mean, the two are very closely intertwined, it seems to me, and you know, we can dance around the head of a pin on housing, and if we ignore these other aspects, I think we're missing part of the point.
Okay. Any closing thoughts?
My closing thought is I'm so grateful that you brought us together to thresh out and think about these questions, which we may have done individually,
Absolutely.
but it's certainly great to,
Yes.
because you've given us food for thought to carry on. I keep banging you, I'm sorry.
I like that. You're much
His leg is in the way.
Maybe have another session after you've had time to let it
Yes,
populate.
and would you ask the young people that question, please? About
yeah,
the,
I
yes.
will.
You'll
Thank
probably
you
get,
for all
It
the
would be-
time you've been giving us.
Absolutely,
A lot
thank
of
you.
time.
That would be great if you could get them together in a group.
Yeah.
And then if we
I think she's gonna do
Yeah,
it
yeah.
individually. Are you gonna get them in a group?
I would love to if I can
That'd be
grab
good.
some of
It's
their
gonna be hard,
time
yeah.
during the picnic. I mean, if you can talk to your children and say, you know, maybe I
Save
get a
some
half
time.
hour,
Yeah.
you know, to
That would be
get
good.
them together.
So,
But we do thank you, Diane, so much.
Yes, thank you, Diane.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's hope this